Good day everyone. Today I am discussing to you the derivative of sine and cosine. Sine and cosine. The derivative of sine x is equals to cos x and the derivative of cos x is equals to negative sine x. Example. D over dx times 4 sine x is equals to 4 times d over dx times sine x. So the derivative of sine x is the cos x. That's why we put the cos x and the copy the number 4. So multiply this. This will become the final answer, the 4 times cos x. Next is d over dx times 3 cos x. The same process, so is equals to 3 times d over dx. The derivative of cos x is negative sin x. That's why the final answer is negative 3 sin x. Prove that sin x is equals to cos x. F of x is equals to sin x and f prime of x is equals to cos x. F prime of x is equals to limit of h approaches to 0. F prime of x is h plus h minus f of x over h. F of x, f prime of x, f prime of x, f times x plus h is equals to sine x plus h. So this came from there. So next step is f prime of x is equals to the limit h approaches to 0 sine times x plus h copy. So we get this in there, and because the value or the value of f of x is sine x and copy the negative sign, that's why negative sine x over h. To simplify this, you need to use the sum and difference formula of sine and cosine. The sum and difference formula of sine and cosine is sine times a plus b is equals to sine a cos b plus cos a sine b. F of x is equals to the limits h approaches to 0 sin x times cos h plus cos x times sin h minus sin x over h. Next, f prime of x is equals to the limits of h approaches to 0 cos x times sin h plus sin x times cos h minus sin x over h. Limits h approaches to 0 cos x times sin h over h plus the limits of h approaches to 0 minus sin x plus sin x minus cos h over h. Next is cos x is the limits of h approaches to 0 sin h over h plus the limits h approaches to 0 minus sin x times 1 minus cos h is equals to h. Cos x, limits of h approaches to 0 sin h over h minus sin x, limits h approaches to 0 times 1 minus cos h over h. So this two is you need to familiar. So number 1, limits sin x over x, that is equals to 1. And when the limits x approaches to 0 and when the form is this or this form and this form is just the same, they only differ in the variables. 1 minus cos x over x is equals to 0, so this both is same. So this is equivalent to 0. This form is equivalent to 0 and this form is the same, so this form is equivalent to 1. Cos x, limit h approaches to 0 sin h over h minus sin x, limits 1 cos h over h. So the value of this is 1. So that's why cos 1 minus, so you need to cancel because the value of this is 0, so sin x times 0 is equals to 0. So prove that sin is equals to cos x. D over dx times sine x is equals to cos x. And that would be all. Thank you.